I do want to take a moment to talk about some of the pros and cons of nest box monitoring. I just love monitoring nest boxes and have been doing it for quite some time now. So for me, the pros far outweigh the cons. Some of the pros are that you have an opportunity to observe wild birds nesting up close, like the tree swallow nest pictured in the upper left screen, and to watch the nests progress from egg to fledgling. This is something that I never get tired of. I'm just always happy to see my babies hatch, grow up, and make their way into the world. It never gets old for me. This is also an excellent opportunity to volunteer for Kenton County Parks and Recreation. Our parks are wonderful, and volunteers are really appreciated. At the same time, you can also participate in NestWatch, a nationwide citizen science project run by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. I am always looking for a reason to ditch the list of chores, unplug, and hit the trails, and I can't think of a better excuse than I have to go check on my babies, to trade my computer for binoculars, and my slippers for hiking boots. So for me, it is the perfect excuse to turn off the tech, ditch the list of chores, and wander around the park on a beautiful day. There are, however, some cons to nest box monitoring. For one, it is a time commitment. If you commit to monitoring nest boxes, you do need to be consistent with your monitoring. That can be once or twice a week, depending upon what level of commitment you are able to provide. However, about every 7 days would be the minimum level of monitoring expected during the breeding season. If you neglect monitoring, there are things that can go wrong. For example, birds may die inside the box, there could be damage to the boxes, or house sparrows could end up breeding in them. Depending on how many boxes you monitor and how far apart they can take up to an hour in some cases. For me, of course, that is not an issue, and one result of all of that hiking has been that my blood pressure is the best it's been since I was 19, so we can move the time commitment for the hike back to the pro list in my case. The need to manage house sparrows, pictured in the upper right, is, for me, the worst part of nest box monitoring. However, it is essential to remove these nests because if you don't, you're not providing habitat for bluebirds, you're instead fostering their competition, which makes things worse than if there were no nest boxes at all. House sparrows are non-native invasive species, and they do compete with our native cavity nesters, our chickadees, our bluebirds, and our tree swallows. So it is important to manage these nests. Notice I did not mention house wrens just now. Over the years, I have observed that house wrens are so aggressive that house sparrows cannot compete with them, and I have anecdotally observed a reduction in house sparrows with an increase in house wrens in my nest boxes. Also, occasionally, nestlings and sometimes adult birds will die or be destroyed. Sometimes an adult will die of old age, or a snake will get the nestlings, or the nest will succumb to competition from another bird, and you will need to remove the dead birds and destroyed nest, with gloves, of course. There are things that can happen, like weather events, that can destroy the box as well. Though these situations are not pleasant, they do come with the territory, and they are part of the monitoring role. These situations are usually the exception, and most of the time we see successful nest attempts, and it's wonderful. But I do think it's important to mention the drawbacks. Now I want to recap a bit on what happened with us in 2019. Kenton County Parks and Recreation has developed a collaboration with Dr. Lindsay Walters at Northern Kentucky University. We are moving into our 4th year of this partnership, and it has been absolutely wonderful. Last year, Dr. Walters and her students banded 17 bluebird and 15 tree swallow nestlings. Her students were able to capture data on female incubation behavior using remote temperature loggers called eye buttons and monitor bluebird fetal heart rates from outside the egg using a heart rate monitor. This picture on the bottom left is one of my favorites, which I call Cup of Cuteness. Here we have a nestling bluebird getting weighed inside a Dixie cup before banding. To the right, there is an image of a nestling bluebird being banded. Since we've been banding nestlings for a few years now, we are starting to see banded adults returning to the boxes and nesting. As you can imagine, this is very exciting for us to see. I am absolutely aglow over what I will share in the next two slides. Because of our collaboration with NKU, undergraduate students have had opportunities to engage in scientific fieldwork and analyses and to present their findings publicly. This year, 5 students presented posters on their research. The 3 shown in this slide were presented at the Heather Bullen Summer Research Celebration at Northern Kentucky University. The poster in the middle actually used NestWatch data that we, the volunteer NestBox monitors, submitted to NestWatch over several years to run some analyses. And I am so happy to know that the data that we submitted is available to scientists on a national and international scale now and into the future, of course, but it was also able to be used for a smaller scale local study by a research student. Additionally, 2 students were awarded competitive travel awards by the Wilson Ornithological Society to travel to their annual conference in Cape May, New Jersey. Yes, that is right. Our Kentucky bluebirds were represented at a national ornithological conference. I am so incredibly proud of this and excited for these students. If you are in my email distribution list, I have or will share these posters with you, and you can take some time to look at each one more closely. They are really great. So continuing on with what we've done last year, Dr. Walters and I facilitated a program for the Cub Scouts Community Day Camp where we took the Scouts on a birding hike and taught them about nest boxes. I also facilitated a program for the Girl Scout Twilight Camp. In the photo to the right, you will see some beautiful new nest boxes that the Cub Scouts made for us in 2018 under the direction of Mr. Al Kuzman. Some of the boxes we have in the parks are getting pretty old and run down. As you can imagine, this route was set up in 1998, so some of these boxes are more than 10 years old. In the photo next to the new boxes, you will see one of our old boxes that has been well used and fledged lots and lots and lots of babies, but was worn down and needed to retire. We really appreciate these boxes, and they are replacing some of the worn out boxes in our parks throughout Kenton County. And of course, last but not least, in our local chapter updates, take a look at what our chapter submitted in 2019. In 2019, our chapter submitted 81 nest attempts to NestWatch. I think that is just absolutely incredible. Every year as a chapter, our monitors have been consistent with their submission of high-quality data about our nest boxes, and it has been so wonderful. Last year, we reported breeding data on bluebirds, tree swallows, barn swallows, house wrens, European starlings, American robins, and house finches. I know that sometimes this can be a chore, and I do sincerely thank each of you who has taken the time to contribute to this project from the bottom of my heart. I am so proud of us and all that we do. And even more to that point, over the years, we as a chapter have been consistent with our dedication to this project. Because of your dedication as volunteers, our chapter has submitted 463 nest attempts to NestWatch since 2014. That is amazing. I think in the next year we will probably surpass the 500 mark, which is something we should all be so very proud of. When I started this initiative in 2014, I did not expect us to get to this point. I was just a huge nerd with a lot of data to share, and I wanted to find a place to send it to. I did not expect to end up here. I know I sound like a broken record, but I am so proud of us. I said it once and I'll say it again. Thank you so much to each and every volunteer who has contributed to this project. It is because of you that we now have this high-quality data set, which is being stored indefinitely for scientists the world over to use both now and into the future. When these nest attempts are long forgotten, these data will still be available for the scientific community, and I want to say that you, the volunteers, can be forever proud to have contributed to real scientific research. Since we are the only chapter in Kentucky, this may be one of the only large data sets representing Kentucky nestbox species composition and breeding outcomes, which could prove valuable in future research. Thank you for representing our beautiful little corner of the world and its nestbox babies so well. You are the best. This concludes the first segment of this training. This class will continue in the Part 2 video, where I will explain the Code of Conduct and nestbox monitoring in more detail. Thank you for watching.